Hey guys, Gary here. Thanks for checking in today. We're going to carry forward with more part reviews from Apex Tactical Specialties. They had sent some parts over, and the video I did a couple weeks ago focused on Glock parts. And I had a few folks comment they were surprised I started with Glock stuff because while the Apex Glock parts are good, they're known for their M&P stuff. That's what kind of got them their name. And while I'll shoot a Glock once in a while, I also am known to shoot an M&P a lot. So they were surprised that I started with a Glock, but it was a logistical thing. I had two Glocks in my possession. I had to borrow one that I could swap out the factory parts for the Apex parts, do a before and after, and no problem. Now, flip over to the M&P side. I got a bunch of M&Ps here of various sizes and whatnot, but they either some are stock and some have a variety of Apex parts already in them. So a direct before and after wasn't going to happen because I wasn't going to take all the Apex stuff out, reinstall the stock parts if I could find them, and then do a before and reverse it and do an after. So instead, let's just talk about the Apex parts that I got here, and then we'll mention the next video too, which will have a before and after. First things first, how I got into Apex parts. A friend of mine, Josh, had shot M&Ps, and he did a lot of IPSC shooting, and he changed guns, like brands of guns, every few weeks. And when he sold when he was doing M&Ps, he got an Apex Hard Sear. I'm not mistaken, it's like the first product they really made. And when he sold it, he put the stock one back in because gun shops don't really give you anything extra for aftermarket parts. He thought he'd sell it separate. Instead, he gave it to me. So I put it in my, what I call my number one M&P, and because I had people asking me if it was reliable. I was like, well, one way to find out. So I put it in there, and it's still in there a decade later, or close to a decade. I don't know. The gun's 12 years old, so the Sears, I don't know, years old. Lots of rounds through it. More rounds with it than without it. Sometimes I forgot it was in there when I was mentioning the gun. And it worked fine. Never had an issue with it. And then sometime later, my friend Brian sent a shield over, and the shield had an Apex trigger shoe in it. But it's just the shoe. It's not the whole kit. His shop didn't have a whole kit in when he sent this over. He sent it with big dots and the Apex in it, right, from him to me. Now, I have a trigger pull weight on this that I got, and I even compared it to my wife's factory shield. Well, it's got the big dots on it, but nothing else. And they're remarkably different, which tells me that there might be something between these two guns, just in manufacturing tolerances, because I can't believe the trigger shoe by itself would change them. There's tape on all these because I had to write down what the trigger pull weights were. I had to borrow a trigger pull gauge too. So my wife's stock shield was 7 pounds 3 ounces, and the one with the Apex aluminum trigger shoe was 5 pounds 14.5 ounces. So say 6 pounds, shoe a pound, 2 pounds, or a little over a pound of weight difference, maybe. It might have something to do with the trigger is a lever, and my trigger pull gauge has a little like ball bearing, rubber ball bearing on the end, not ball bearing, rubber bearing on the end. So it wants to ride to the low spot of the trigger, and the shape of the Apex trigger pushes it down lower on the shoe than the factory M&P trigger. So it might just be that extra leverage from being further towards the bottom. The good news is it makes your finger go there more too. So you probably could feel a difference. But I really like the feel of that trigger shoe. Like I really like that center duber more than the hinged trigger a lot. So I decided I would get one for my number one M&P. And looking at the pictures, it looked like the plastic trigger was more rounded than the aluminum one, and molding versus machining. So I picked up a plastic or polymer, whatever, trigger shoe for my number one M&P, put it on there. I don't feel that it changed the trigger pull. I didn't at the time, but I liked the tactile feel of my finger better with the center thing than the hinge trigger, so I just carried on with myself, and I was happy with that. At some point later, I got a 2.0 compact, the 2.19 as I call it, and that I got the whole AEK kit. So it's got the plastic shoe on the trigger bar, which I think might be a factory trigger bar, and their hard sear and their plunger, which differed from my number one M&P, as seen here, that had just the plastic shoe and the sear, because I never bought the plunger. The parts came in independent of each other. And so this has a trigger pull weight too, but I never checked the gun before I put the kit in it. So I can't promise you that how much it went down. However, it's given me 4 pounds, 15.5 ounces. So say 5 pounds flat is what this gun with the AEK in it is giving me. And over here on this gun, which is a 2.19 or 2.0 compact, it gives me 8 pounds 4 ounces. So same gun, like 3 pounds of difference. Assuming, again, manufacturing tolerances, how much does that play from this gun to this gun? Now, good news is, this is going to be my test bed for the next video. So we'll get a direct before and after on this gun. Over here, I have a Gen 1 M&P that has maybe 50 rounds put through it. I bought it from a place because they had a smoking deal, and I didn't even know what I needed it for, but I just bought it anyway, and like, okay, I'll use it for something later in the future. So it's kind of just sat in a box. Out of the box, though, it had 7 pounds, 11 ounces as a trigger, which I was surprised. I didn't remember my first M&P from 2007 or whatever, 8, whatever it was, feeling so heavy. But again, that might have something to do with the hinge trigger moving the trigger pull gauge up to the center of the trigger instead of down towards the bottom. But if we use that as how an M&P starts, and we use this gun as how an M&P finishes, there's quite a bit of difference. And now, unfortunately, I can't tell you what the AEK did by itself because it doesn't have the whole kit. It's got the factory plunger in it that came with the gun. It has the Apex hard sear, back when they were only selling the hard sear. Much later, it got the plastic trigger shoe. And this has the Apex RAM in it that came somewhere in the middle, which is the reset assist mechanism, maybe. I don't think that changes anything to do with the trigger press, but it makes the reset more distinct. It is more distinct on this gun than it is the gun that's the 1.0 that doesn't have a lot of rounds fired through it. This gun was upgraded with the most current slide stop. It's got like a little bump on the outside. It came on this one. And it has I think it's the H trigger bar, which is what comes on the new ones, or the newest ones, because I don't think they're making the 1.0s at all anymore. But they petered out with the H trigger bar. I think it's the H. And I bought one of those and put that in here, so it just had the most factory current parts. So this particular guy, 3 pounds, 9.1 ounces. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that's better than putting the kit in, but in December of 2019, in this gun's 12-year lifespan, it finally hit 70,000 rounds of ammunition fired through it. So it's like the $10,000 trigger job as far as how much I spent on ammo to run through this gun in over a decade. And that smooths the shit out of stuff. So I can't say you're going to get the same results if you were to buy, the hard sear and the trigger shoe, because let's be honest, smooths out a lot with all those rounds put through it. But number one M&P, sub 4 pound by a few ounces, sub 4 pound trigger. All in all, the point I'm trying to get at is they have a lot of removal of trigger weight. I think it feels a little less mushy with that sear in it, but like there's no way to quantify that. I like the way it feels better. Now, this gun over here with the 8.8 pounds 4 ounces with the red dot on the back, that's going to get this in it shortly, and that is the forward set trigger kit for the M&P 2.0. It comes with a whole page of instructions on things that you do to change the trigger pulls and stuff. I don't know what one I'm going to go with, but that's going to be its own video. That'd be the second half of this one, which will do how hard was it to install and, you know, choosing which one of the things. Maybe I'll set it up in a couple of different ways. It comes with like a flow chart for which combos make what trigger pull weights and whatever. But that will be its own separate video, but it'll be perfect because we get a good before and after on this red dot equipped gun. So in the M&P world, those are the things on the gun. I have not used one of their barrels, and I have not used one of their extractors. I've heard good things about them. I haven't needed one. I haven't had a problem with the factory parts, so I just haven't been quick to run out and get them. Although maybe I will at some point here, specifically to do a review, just because it'd probably be another interesting video for those of you who would like to see what all Apex stuff you can do to an M&P. All right, so another part that I've been using that's not a gun part, but a magazine part for the M&P is their polymer base plate. And there was no reason for me necessarily to need one of those. I wasn't having base plate issues, but they came in real handy for me. The factory M&P base plate on the 17 round guns has this real long toe on the end of it, and that's so it aesthetically fits with the gun. You know, it looks very nice. But when you're putting that magazine in places, that extra chunk sticking out is a nuisance. If you do like double magazine pouches, I don't really carry that way, but a lot of times the magazine in the front would catch the one in the back and you'd pull one out, they'd both go to the ground. That was a concern for some folks, but it didn't really apply to me. It's just when I pocket carry this thing, this extra piece sticking in there made it not great to carry it. So I replaced it with the base plates from the compact magazine. And I like that much better. It has a little lip, but it's not obtrusive. And so that I knew my magazines from other people's magazines at the range, I got a bunch of them Cerakoted in yellow. And that's what I ran for the longest time. Now, if you notice, the new 15 round magazine comes with that base plate. Same one that I've been using on a bunch of my mags, other than the yellow ones. And the magazines are pretty close to each other. Yes, this one's 2 rounds longer. At a glance, I have grabbed magazines like, that's not the fucking one I want. Going to the range for various shit, a bunch of things come with me. So I decided I would run 17 round magazines, most predominantly when I was training, because I have 50 some of those, and I have a half a dozen or so of the 15 rounders. So I was like, well, at the range I'm going to use these 17 rounders. The 15 rounders I'm going to save for putting in the gun when I carry it. So in order to make them visually different and now tactilely different, I put the Apex base plates on. And I believe they're stamped 10.8. I think 10.8 made an alloy version, and they might still, I don't know. And they were teamed with Apex to make a polymer version. So I sent them over to Big Iron Cerakoting and had them Cerakoted gray. So they're a different color, they feel different, and they're a different shape. And then I load them full of Defiant Munitions TCX. So rather than go to the range and inadvertently grab this 17 round magazine that looks pretty similar, what that I want to do, I'm less likely to grab one of these ones with the expensive bullets in it and shoot them at cardboard. And I save these for, meaty things. Base plate has worked fine. No negatives to it. It wasn't really any negatives to the old one as far as like reliability. It was just a matter of making it different for my ability to tell them apart easier. So that's been great. Maybe we'll do a future video after the the forward set sear project on this gun. After I do that, maybe we'll get into some other stuff. Maybe look at one of their extractors or a barrel, or maybe some of the tools that they make. I have a couple of those floating around here as well, so maybe that'll be a future video. So in short, if you put an Apex trigger, anything from the shoe and the sear, a whole AEK kit, they will all improve the gun as far as how nice it is to shoot, and they don't affect reliability in the least bit. So it's a super reliable gun, and that was the thing that was most important when I was testing, is that the gun stayed super reliable. My number one has enough rounds through it with the Apex parts, more rounds through it than most anyone will ever shoot out of all their guns combined, because unfortunately gun owners don't get out and use their stuff enough. So my thought on it is they are plenty reliable enough to use. They are an upgrade as far as making your gun more comforting to shoot. And if you want to go get one, you will not be disappointed, just like with the Glock triggers from the last video. All right, I will catch you guys later, and we'll get another part of this out with a before and after on that red dot equipped gun, and then we'll see what goes from there. Take it easy.
But the idea of kneeling, it's, you see, slaughtering all those men of yours has left a nasty crack in my leg, so kneeling will be hard.